Hey, so as you can see, this is not my dorm room, and this is not Alex. This is actually Peter Drevis, who wrote a insightful piece for us last week. Peter, I thank you for coming on.
Thanks.
We were just discussing the need for vision in a presidential candidate. Peter, could you tell us more?
Yeah, what first got me thinking about the need for a vision in a presidential candidate is actually something I read on the Richardson campus. It was in Alex's post wherein he analyzed the performances of all the Democratic candidates in the most recent debate. And what really got me thinking about this was one comment he made about Hillary Clinton's performance, which he said that he got the sense from her performance in the debate that she didn't really offer much as a candidate beyond wanting to just really do a good job as president. And that got me to think of whether or not that's enough, whether or not being able to do a good, proficient job is good enough in a candidate, or do you really want a candidate who has bigger ideas going on? So that's what got me thinking about this initially, and I've kind of been grouping the candidates into the more visionary category and the, just get the job done category. And I'd say, you can put Richardson and Obama in the visionary category, whereas people like Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, they belong more in the get the job done category.
So what would you say are sort of some of the drawbacks and the positives of being a visionary candidate and being a more stay the course.
Status quo.
Yeah, exactly. More of a status quo. I mean, because both certainly have their drawbacks, but both certainly also have their positives. So, I mean, so what exactly are you looking for there?
Yeah, like you said, there are drawbacks and positives to both, and it's not black and white. One is good, one is bad. I was in trying to figure out, what the positives and negatives are. I started looking at historical examples, and that didn't actually really get me anywhere because the truth is, you could find examples of great presidents who have had a vision, JFK, LBJ, FDR, and great presidents who were more just status quo people who kind of handled the issues as they came to them. I'd say Lincoln is like this. He didn't have much of a vision beyond winning the Civil War. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, I'm sure if you had asked them, based on what their political ideologies were, they would say, no, I don't think a president with a vision is good for the country. So it's tough to say what the drawbacks are, but I'd say that if you want a candidate if you think that there is a serious problem with the way things are done right now in Washington in terms of domestic issues and foreign policy, and you want a fundamental change, that's where you go for a visionary candidate. However, if you think that things are run essentially the way they should be, it's just, issues rather than the way things are done that should change, then you'd want to go for a more realistic candidate.
Now, see, actually, I think here we disagree. I actually believe Richardson, well, I wouldn't say he's a complete realist. I say he does certainly have a vision in certain aspects. I say he really is more of a pragmatist than someone with these grand, illustrious ideas. I think he knows what can be done. I think this is actually built up over his years of experience. For example, he doesn't make any huge claim that he's going to clean up government. He says that he wants to build this bipartisan, even nonpartisan atmosphere. But he doesn't say we do eliminate these agencies which are doing poorly. We need to fix the way that we generally run government. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think more visionary candidates would say the opposite. But I think that because he's been in politics for decades, he realizes that it's not really a realistic goal. That we can't do that certainly in 4 years and even not in 8 years. But I think on the other hand, he certainly is visionary. I think, for example, his vision on Iraq is a fairly visionary one, that we would get all the troops out pretty much immediately. While I think most people would say that the status quo would be stay there, get the, bring whatever stability can be brought to the region. He's saying more along the lines of we need to save American lives. Yeah. This is a quagmire. Let's leave. I think really, with the exception of very few other candidates, he's really the only one who's saying that. Yeah. And I think that's a fairly visionary foreign policy. And also, if you look at any of his work with Iran or Africa, instead of saying let's use the brute force of the American army, he's saying as a negotiator who's sent into war zones all around the world, he's saying, look, we need to actually sit down to a bargaining table. Yeah. We need to say this is what needs to be done, and we don't treat them as if they're inferior. We don't treat them as if they are lesser human beings. We say, look, we're equals, and we're going to talk to you like equals. And if we do that, then hopefully we can get some progress. And that, I think, is it's a revolutionary idea. Especially over the last 8 years. That's one that we've never really been entertained.
Yeah.
So I think he has a good mix of both. I think that on the one hand, he can certainly set his sights on something grander, but he's, built up and, through his decades in politics, has built up enough pragmatism to realize that, some things really can't be done, that some things really do and should stay the same.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, you made great points, both for, Richardson the pragmatist and Richardson the visionary. But I think it's important to, make sure that we know there's a difference between the pragmatism of his ideas and the fact that he, more than many other candidates, has much more concrete goals in mind, and Iraq is certainly an example of that, and the overall idealism and vision, and idealism can kind of be a bad word, but I'm not using it as such in this case. But the overall sort of vision that his entire policy puts forward, and I think what you said is right. A lot of his experience in terms of negotiating kind of gives away a sort of very visionary center. I think his ability to sort of sit down with parties is something that you don't see in a lot of other candidates, and
Certainly.
that's what makes him a visionary in a way.